And we are back. Another episode of Jays and Confused. I am joined by Matt, as always, and we have a special guest this week, Brenda Olson. Welcome to the show.
Worcester, Massachusetts. I think this is us growing up so I'm proud to be here.
If you were talking, I don't think we got any of it.
I said it's great
Sorry.
to be here. It's a joy. It's a lot of basketball conversations had between the three of us, and it's nice to
That's
finally
true.
put it on wax. So happy to be along for the ride.
Hell
So
yeah.
we've been off for a few days now, so we actually have two games to catch up on. The first was the Celtics win over the Los Angeles Lakers. Bit of a run going on right now. What did you guys make of the game?
Yeah, I mean, it was a fun game. No LeBron and no Luca for the Lakers, obviously. But just another back-to-back wire-to-wire win after doing so the game before. So it's good to see them being able to maintain, building up a dominant lead even early in that first quarter and keeping their foot on the gas for the whole game, which has sometimes been a problem of letting those big leads kind of collapse. Yeah, it's just a really fun game. I thought Jordan Walsh played amazing defense on Austin Reeves. I thought, Jaylen Brown did Jaylen Brown things on offense. And just in general, it was fun. It was a fun game.
I thought Jordan Walsh played great defense. Can I
Yeah, I
just
want to talk about
ask
LeBron.
that the
Go ahead.
national media stop trying to convince me Austin Reeves is good at basketball? There was such a push before that game to be like, Austin Reeves is going off for 45. This is his time. He's done this every time the other two are out. And what we saw was he can just get stopped by Jordan Walsh. And this isn't a knock on Jordan Walsh. He played great. But if you're a star that I'm getting warned about, I don't know if he should just be able to take you out of a game. They also played some of the worst zone defense I think I've seen all year. They
Hilariously
were
bad
just
zone
not
defense.
guarding guys. It was probably the worst opponent we've had this year, and we've had multiple games versus the Nets. So I don't know how much I took away from it, but I'm just not scared of the Lakers from here on out.
I'm going to push back on that a
Brenda,
little
did you have
bit.
a major takeaway?
Yeah, I don't
I
know
think
if
we're having some technical difficulties
All right, while
on
we
that
while we
end.
try to get Brenda back, I do want to push back on that a little bit. We did
Okay.
just beat the Wizards by roughly 600 points the game before. So I think it might be a stretch to say the Lakers are the worst team we've played. I think, again, missing their two star players. I think you have a valid point about Austin Reeves. A lot of his points, and this has been a trend with him throughout the season, he just gets to the free throw line. He got to the free throw line a ton. He draws contact. He draws foul calls. When it was just him versus Jordan Walsh, can you get a bucket? The answer was no.
No.
And I think that's a valid point that I don't know what that says about Austin Reeves. I think he's a good, I think he's a great basketball player. I don't know that he's a star on the level that he's being hyped up to be of
Yeah, and he got 36, but a lot of that was just because he was the only guy with the ball in his hand. And when you're on the Los Angeles Lakers, you get every foul call for some reason.
yeah.
So you brought up the Wizards game. I thought Chris Middleton showed a lot more as an ISO scorer against us, even though he didn't have the same point total because he had a much lower usage. But he was able to actually kind of scare us as an ISO scorer, where Jordan Walsh just never felt that impactful, or Austin Reeves never felt that impactful.
Yeah. I mean, I thought Austin Reeves. There were a couple times that it was he was getting around Jordan Walsh, but the help defense was so good. It felt like Walsh and Kada as a tag team were so effective. Of even if Austin Reeves could get by Jordan Walsh on a screen action, Kada was right there every time, and I do think that that's promising. Again, there are better ISO scorers in the league than Austin Reeves, but if we're able to play that kind of unified defense against a guy who spent the whole game with the ball in his hands, I want to say at some point in the game it was there have been 11 assists by the Lakers, 8 of them were Austin Reeves. So it's literally nobody else could make a play for the Lakers in that game. Let's see. 11 assists by the Lakers, 8 of them were Austin Reeves. So it's literally nobody else could make a play for the Lakers in that game. Let's see. 11 assists by the Lakers, 8 of them were Austin Reeves. So it's literally nobody else could make a play for the Lakers in that game. Yeah, if you're unless you're counting Drew Timmy's 3 assists in garbage time, there were 4 other assists
Don't
by
sleep on
Lakers not
Timmy.
named Austin Reeves.
Yeah, I'm not. There's a reason Austin Reeves had the ball in his hand. I'm not advocating for more Drew Timmy playing time. Drew Timmy? Who's the Timmy?
Drew Timmy.
Drew Timmy. Okay.
Hurtful that you're not advocating for more playing time because I will say there were some guys out there. Uh, Maxi Kleba didn't show me a lot in his minutes. Jackson Hayes a -16. Maybe Drew Timmy was the answer in that game for them, but we'll never know.
I don't know if there were many answers in that game for him. Biggest answer for us, like you mentioned, was the Jordan Walsh Neemias Queta duo. Big week for Jordan Walsh. This was a guy who in preseason didn't look like he was going to be part of the rotation, was kind of the odd wing out, and now he's started the last 11 games. I've seen a ton of stats up about how he's, the first non-center to shoot like over 90%
Over the
on
course of 3 games.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like small sample size, but he's just been hitting every shot and playing lockdown man-to-man defense. What are we thinking is his ceiling right now, and is how he's playing now sustainable? Yeah. Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, and I think if we're in a situation where another team is putting their third best defender on Jordan Walsh, I'm so okay with that.
That's a win for
Because
us.
then that's going to open up a lot for the Peyton Pritchards, the Derek Whites, the Jalen Browns, if and when Jason Tatum comes back. If one or two of those guys isn't dealing with a top tier defender because they have to guard Jordan Walsh, that's all I really want from Jordan.
Yeah, and I think his physicality is really an advantage there. I think one thing that I thought was huge in that Lakers game that I saw from him, I forget which quarter it was. He caught a pass on the corner, went up, pump faked a corner three, and then drove by 2 defenders and dunked the ball. And like it was a very simple play. The crowd was very like they went nuts about it. But I think like that's kind of when you ask what is his ceiling, is what can he do if you throw him the ball with 5 seconds on the shot clock and or like make something happen. And the more tools that he can add to his repertoire, I don't think he's gonna be like starting to, like try to cross people up and pulling up for mid range or anything. Like he's not going to be a shot creator in that sense, but if he's able to do something with the ball in his hands, I've kind of started to look at him as like a taller, like more physical Josh Hart would kind of be my ideal ceiling for him. Somebody who like kind of does everything, like can go out on any given night and get you 8 rebounds, can like score efficiently for like 14, 15 points and like throw in a couple assists while just playing like really good defense.
Yeah, he's flashed a lot of offensive tools. Like his ability to shoot, that's probably coming down at some point, but he's been able to drive on closeouts. He finishes with both hands really well, which means you can kind of station him in either corner and he's still able to drive and finish around guys with either hand. I was listening to Stool Greeny on a recent, I think it was First to the Floor podcast, who had his ceiling comp as Andre Karolinko. Like a guy who doesn't really dribble the ball, but can do like everything on offense at a really high level. And I think that's a little unrealistic just because like I don't think Jordan Walsh is making an all-star team and I don't want us to get too far out over our skis, but he
That's
has like an offensive package.
yeah. I think here's I'm gonna push back a
Yep.
teeny tiny bit, and this is maybe me being hopelessly optimistic. I think Jordan Walsh could make an All-Star team. He's still young. I don't think it's likely, and not by any means. But I think the fact that he has this offensive package and he's still growing into it. Like again, this is his third season in the NBA, but like his first season getting NBA minutes, like serious playing time, and he's like 11, 11 or 12 games into starting, and he's already showing so much growth on the offensive end. He's showing all these things that he has in his tool bag. So I think that as that continues to deepen over multiple seasons, if he's able to be like an all defense caliber defender, which he's kind of showing that he is, and he's able to like get more minutes and make more of an impact like statistically of if you can score 17 points a night or something like that on ridiculous efficiency. We've seen players like that make all-star teams. Like Al Horford was never the eye-popping stats guy, but it was like he's a defensive anchor who contributes a lot offensively. And again, Jordan Walsh is nowhere near that caliber of player right now, but that's something that I could see him getting to if like everything breaks right for him.
Brenda, did you have something on that? I saw your mic move.
I think an all-star is a stretch. Just, that's like just because of how all-star works and not, like an all-star caliber player versus like what an all, who makes all-star team. There are semantics around that. But Andre Karolinko is an interesting one. I think Andre Karolinko might be a better passer
Yeah, I think
than we've seen
All-Star
Jordan
you
Walsh.
need much higher counting
But
stats. I
that is
was
all I have to
thinking
say
as a
about that.
comp, kind of Otto Porter-y, like how he was on the Wizards, where he was never the guy who was going to go out and score 20, but he was the guy who could get you 12 points on 5 shots, you know?
Yeah.
And having a guy like that a lot of times can be almost as valuable or more than as valuable as having a guy who can just get to the 20 number. Um, Especially when, Jason Tatum comes back and you have
Oh, I see.
multiple
It's crashing
all NBA
after
caliber
every.
guys on one team, you need him to be more of the sort of Otto Porter type.
Yeah, I think we're fortunate in that he already plays better defense than an Otto Porter type. But yeah, I think that's the one thing is like there's been this talk about his efficiency. I believe going into the Lakers game and like his first few shots in the Lakers game, his streak had reached like 15 or 16 shots in a row that he had made over the course of like the last 3 games prior to that. Um, so he was riding like an insane shooting streak. That's something that I kind of see continuing, like obviously not to that level. And he did go 50% from the field against the Raptors on Sunday. But that is kind of where I'm seeing a lot of opportunity once Jason Tatum comes back. Like we know the passer that Jason Tatum has developed into and him how he can create opportunities for guys. It seems like I imagine he's going to have a fantastic time playing with Jordan Walsh. With Walsh's athleticism, ability, I think he can finish lobs. I think he can do backdoor cuts all day, as well as just like if he's able to maintain his 3 point percentage is gonna fluctuate. I think a little bit more than anything else, but the ability to create easy shots at the rim, I think will always be there for him. And so like if I could see him. Do you remember that Russell Westbrook season for the Rockets where he was like he had crazy high
Are we
efficiency, but it
doing a
was
Russell Westbrook stat now for Jordan Walsh?
yeah we are not not gonna say counting stats are gonna be the same, but the
Triple
efficiency around the
double
rim,
MVP season
yeah,
coming for Jordan
that's what I'm
Walsh.
saying.
Yeah.
No, but I think like having him kind of like the shot chart that he can have of like wide open threes and then like easy looks at the rim is really ideal of a setup for him, like efficiency wise, for him to maintain that and playing off ball more as Jason Tatum is reintegrated. I think like his point total might dip a little bit, but I think he's going to be getting such easier looks that it might even like plateau or jump up a few.
I think that's interesting. The other question when Tatum comes back is, does Jordan Walsh go to the bench? Because that's what I had been assuming. I've heard some people out there have the idea that Peyton Pritchard functions very well off the bench. And if we want to kind of spread out our playmaking a little bit more, having Jordan Walsh as a 20-minute a night starting, but maybe not finishing defender could be the more valuable place to have him. With Jason Tatum coming back in the minutes for wings going down significantly, who are we looking at as kind of the odd man out? of that group of sort of Jordan Walsh, Minot, Hauser.
Brenda,
Are we assuming that
you wanna
Baylor?
leap in?
Yeah, are we assuming that Baylor Shireman is already out in this?
That was gonna be my
Great
answer.
question.
Because
I
Baylor Shireman, it's
listen.
nice to see it.
I've been a Baylor
Thanks for coming.
defender on this pod. I think a lot of what Baylor brings is a little bit different than those guys because he can play more of a guard role where he can kind of dribble the ball up and get the offense going a little bit. He can move with the ball, which the other guys really can't. So I see him as more a replacement for Anthony Simons one day than a replacement than battling Jason Tatum for minutes. But I don't think Baylor has any minutes that are safe from Jason Tatum.
Yeah, the non-negotiable Baylor minutes.
I
I was
would
gonna say the
Yeah, no.
same thing of like it depends what happens with Anthony Simons at the
Yes.
deadline is gonna be what kind of determines Baylor Shireman's minutes going forward.
Yeah, I mean that's still like sometimes that's 5 minutes a game, sometimes
Yeah.
it's 12, you know? I don't Anthony Simons right now doesn't have like a huge number of minutes that can get unlocked.
All right, Brenda, what are you thinking for the Wings?
For the Wings, I hate to say it, but I think Sam Hauser could like if he's not
Who's been your
defending and he's not
favorite
making
this season
shots.
among the wing rotation?
Uh, Probably Jordan Walsh, I would say. I just, bald solidarity, first of all, but also um, just what he's been able to do on defense, watching him grow, as as a finisher at the rim. Watching him try stuff has been a lot of fun. I think like that's a little bit more, I like to watch them grow up, as we'll talk about with Marcus Smart later. But yeah, it's Jordan Walsh.
We can
Sorry.
get into Marcus Smart right now. He didn't play in the game, but it was another Marcus Smart trip back to Boston. So there was some media attention to it. I know he did some interviews with Boston press after the game. Did he kind of say or do anything that caught your eye?
Oh, definitely. Bro was wearing a Louis Vuitton green and black Celtics shirt, which I saw, and I think it was for me personally. Um, but just like high-fiving all the guys, they all still love him. Watching like the post-game high fives in the back of the post-game interview has become a personal treat of mine whenever he comes to town. I think just watching the way he interacts with the fans, watching the way the fans interact with him, obviously it's all love, but yeah, the black and green shirt was not lost on me. I see you, Marcus. I love you still.
Yeah, nice call out. It's been kind of a shame that he's been so injury prone since leaving the Celtics. That is kind of a trend I've noticed where Brad Stevens knows when to get off of guys.
Oh
Like
yeah,
Drew
we're all
Holiday and Kristaps haven't really played much this year.
no, don't even mention Time Lord. That's gonna get me all teary eyed.
I have hope for Time Lord. One day he'll get healthy. Portland does not need him to play back to backs.
Yep, like
They're
Bruno Cavaloco, a year away from being a year away from being healthy.
Yeah. No, I think that's an excellent point. Especially with guards, it seems like Isaiah Thomas, Kemba Walker, like Brad Stevens really and even Danny Ainge before. It seems like this Celtics front office is like when guards have an injury time clock, the Celtics front office just kind of like hears that on an intuitive level. Um yeah,
Yeah,
There's
that's
that.
why he had to go with Al back. He knew Al
which
had more in
like
the tank. He had to trade for him back.
yeah, it is heartbreaking when it happens. Like, I would love for Marcus Smart, even after he left the Celtics, to have gone out and impressed the whole league with the player that we know he was capable of being in Boston. Um, and we've seen it. Like, we have a group chat and we've texted each other of like, oh, are you watching this random Lakers game in October? Like, Marcus Smart is leading the offense because LeBron and Luka were out. Um, it does. It makes me nostalgic. I think about when Marcus was traded. One of the like, I think as a grown man, I cried when Marcus Smart was traded, and I went to his first game back in Boston when he was coming back with Memphis and cried there. He was a huge part of why I became a Celtics fan. So yeah,
Yep.
truly a
See us
tremendous
cry.
amount of love for Marcus Smart there.
See us cry.
Um,
See us.
Yeah, and I think what I remember is like Jason Tatum's post of like, "No, we'll get one together at some point." And I'm like, "Hey, listen, Right now, our guard depth, like if Anthony Simons gets traded, it's Baylor Shireman. So I'm like, I'm not discounting a return at some point of like, you know what, just for 12 minutes a game for him to play some defense and get a couple assists. Like Marcus Smart will never forget you, and I'll always have my eye on the market for Marcus Smart out there. Um, but yeah, going back to the earlier question, I think like Ugo's gonna be the odd wing out, and that's unfortunate. Um, as well as I think it does come down to like, I mean Ugo's not getting that many minutes anyway, but I think it's gonna hurt like having seen him this season like grow and like do some really cool stuff and then be like he's gonna be another one of those like Aaron Nesmith of like we just don't have that many minutes for you and like you need NBA minutes to develop fully. And I don't know how many of those he's going to get. And then it comes down to like Minot or Hauser because I think Walsh is going to be a fixture. I think he plays too well on both ends. I kind of I think we'll get to this when we start talking about the Toronto game, but I there's something happening with Josh Minot. Sorry, my internet cut out.
Yeah,
What happened?
The last thing we heard you say was the Toronto.
we're gonna get to this when we talk about
Oh,
the
when we talk
Toronto
about the
game.
Toronto game. Yeah, we'll get to this when we talk about the Toronto game, but I think Josh Minot, there's something going on that his minutes, his lineups are just not quite as effective. And I think
Yeah, we
if
can
Sam Hauser continues to fix his shooting, it's gonna kind of be his minutes that I think pick up a little bit because he's just solid.
we can move to the Toronto game now. The Josh Minot at center lineup
Yeah, before you
seemed to
do,
hit a wall in the Toronto game, going up against Mamu, who was just out rebounding him. He played 11 minutes, which was down minus 12 in those minutes. It was really interesting to see kind of how Joe Mazzulla tried to adjust from there, because we actually saw two very short stretches of Hugo at center lineups, where against the Knicks, he was our best defender on Karl Anthony Towns and was actually able to kind of hold up in the post against those lineups. So he was given a chance here, only played 2 minutes, but scored 5 points in there. It seemed
Mhm.
like he was able to hit shots with a big man on him and get free very easily, but wasn't able to kind of physically match up with a over 7 foot center. Um, Brenda, did you have something?
Can I pause to say goodbye before I have to go back to work?
Oh, yeah, you're out of time?
Yeah, I am out of time. Unfortunately, I have to go back to taking care of children. But I will see y'all later. And thank you so much for having me on. It was a pleasure.
Good luck. Thanks for coming on.
Great to have you. Keep continuing to educate America's youth.
Yeah, so back to the Hawks game. Where do you see Hugo kind of fitting into lineups going forward? Coming into the year, he was really listed as like a two. He played kind of a ball handling shooting guard in Europe, but now it seems like we're kind of looking at him more as like a four, like a guy who can guard bigs and switch pick and rolls.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, like I see him as like a two through like he's just a wing. Like what the NBA has kind of moved into an era of like it's guards, wings, and bigs, and he's just a wing. I think the fact that he can guard some bigs is huge. I'm curious to see. I think one area that in the Lakers game a little bit. I mean, he's really like hasn't been getting that many minutes recently. The Knicks game, he was put on Towns, which I thought was really interesting. I do feel like part of that is it seems like he's been getting beat by guards a little bit on defense, where it seems like he's kind of in an era right now where he's kind of focusing on like using his physicality and just like his energy and like kind of I don't know how else to say it, like manic freneticism of just like I'm gonna just keep moving and it's gonna end up with me like being in front of this guy the whole time. I think as he like gets more minutes, more experience, more time in the NBA, he'll have like a little bit of a smoother defensive approach that is a little bit less frantic, which does kind of lead to some guys just blowing by him, like some mental mistakes. I think we saw that in the Lakers game. He was awful in garbage time in the Lakers game, which like it's garbage time, but I thought that was like concerning. He had like 3 turnovers in a minute and a half in garbage time. So just kind of like not his best showing. I'd like to see him kind of like dial in and take it more seriously whenever he gets those minutes to play, even if it is kind of like just mopping up. I don't know
Yeah,
what
he
his
doesn't
window is
seem
for minutes.
comfortable. He doesn't
Go
seem
ahead.
comfortable with the ball in his hand dribbling against NBA defenders. And all his he's very robotic on the offensive end where he'll have a move in mind where, he'll spin, he'll drive baseline and spin for a layup and it'll either work or it won't work. He doesn't really have the ability right now to adjust on the fly and kind of go get a paint touch and then figure it out in midair. He's very like, he's either going to score or he's going to pass. He's still 19, so I think him even falling out of the rotation isn't the worst thing in the world. And part of why I'm not confused, but wondering what his position is going to be in the NBA is because he's still so young. He's grown in the last year. So it's possible, like we saw with Jason Tatum, you bring in a 19-year-old who's 6'7", and then 3 years into their career, they're 6'10" for some reason.
Yeah.
Also, if we can get him into the whole Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, whatever sort of Gold's Gym Muscle Beach thing they're doing, where Celtics rookies seem to just put on 30 pounds of muscle.
I believe it's
Um,
called the Ojale Factory. Shout out to Semi Ojale
Play
for being just
Factory.
the most jacked NBA player. It seems like he taught those guys some weightlifting secrets. So if they can pass those on to Ugo, yeah, I think he needs to bulk up, but that'll come with time and age. I'm not too worried about that as long as he's keeping that kind of like intensity on the defensive end. I think it is a shame because with Jason Tatum coming back and with the offseason moves that we made this last season, it's clear that like Brad Stevens got the directive of like we're not spending money unless we're confident we can win a title kind of a thing. And that's gonna make cheap rookie contracts like Ugo really important coming up.
Yeah.
And you'd hope that like when Jason Tatum comes back and like maybe at the end of this season, like going into next season, we want to be like confident in our depth. I think last year and the year before with the title run, like the Celtics had arguably, I think, the best bench in the NBA. And so you'd love to see that, especially with Tatum coming off this injury, just like some guys who can come off the bench and like give him some relief. Ugo fits the mold like physically of like he can go out and guard the guy Tatum was guarding. Um, he just right now like can't match up physically, but he's kind of making up for it in terms of just like risky business, just like gambling for steals and like running around, intercepting on passing lanes. Um,
Risky Business would have been a good Hugo nickname.
yeah, now that you mention it,
We should have
I
thought
do
of that
like
when we
that for
did
him.
his list.
Yeah, yeah, he does get
He
into some
also kind
risky
of looks like
business.
Tom Cruise in that movie where he has like the hair flipped up.
Is
Um,
it? Yeah. Um,
Other big takeaway from the Raptors game I have was this both this and the Lakers game were times that we actually out defensive rebounded the other team, which
mhm.
seems to be a real Achilles heel in these losses. How sustainable is that? Have we kind of figured something out with our rebounding? Or are these just not great rebounding teams to begin with, and we're kind of taking advantage of that?
Well, I think it's interesting because you said it's been an issue in these losses, and I'm going to be honest, I don't remember any losses. It's been so long. These Celtics are rolling. NBA power rankings just came out yesterday. We're in the top 10. We're doing well. Everything's good. I want to say the Celtics are 9-1 in their last 10 against like good teams. Like we're not playing the Lakers were 16-5 until they met the Celtics and then, sent them home with an L. Um, but I do think it does seem like they figured something out. I think it is like a team rebounding thing. I think Jaylen Brown, his rebounding numbers have gone up. We've seen him be more aggressive on the defensive boards, especially. Yeah, I think earlier in the season we were seeing like a real weakness on defensive rebounding, and it was kind of like an individual thing of like I think we may have been like waiting for Keita or Garza to just show they can be like a 10 to 12 rebound a game guy, and that's not who they are. And once we kind of realize that, it seems like we've been more intentional about boxing out, about like making sure that we're picking up like loose balls and those defensive boards. Um, I also think it helps that we have like very physical guys like Jordan Walsh who have been getting more and more minutes, who are able to like go chase those down.
I think you cut out.
Yeah, my internet is being weird. Where did I cut out?
You think we've been boxing out more? Jaylen Brown
Yeah,
has gotten better rebounding numbers.
yeah. So I think it's really like a team thing. I think Jordan Walsh being getting more and more minutes and being the physical guy that he is, he's just scooping up a lot of those rebounds. So it really like the rebounding has kind of stopped being a concern for me because in recent games against teams that have significantly more size than we do, like that Lakers team was big. Like they were running out like Jackson Hayes and DeAndre Ayton, and it wasn't a huge issue.
Yeah, neither of those guys are really the type of rebounders I fear for the Celtics team. It's really like our game against the Jazz, where you have like a
It's
Yusuf
Nurkic.
Nurkic,
Yeah.
or like if we go up against Zubac, or even like some of the star big guys like a Jokic or a Sabonis, or against Houston. Like the kind of guys where they have like a big physical center are the ones that give us trouble.
Yeah, and I think there's not much that we can do about those guys. I think it's almost, I would venture a guess is like our mentality has to be like, let's say, like Nurkic or Şengün or like Jokic or whatever, they're going to get 12 to 15 rebounds against us, but as a team we're going to like limit the amount of rebounds that the guards on the other team get, that the wings on the other team get, and we're going to try and like collect it cuz we just don't have a body to box out on those bigger like more physical centers. So it's going to have to be like
Well,
team rebounding around it.
yeah, I mean, you say there's nothing we can do. I mean, the other option that 29 NBA teams do is just have a backup center. And either if that's through trade or, giving Amari Williams more run, is there an argument that we should have a second 7-footer who can kind of body up those guys and get their rebounding numbers from 19 a game versus us to their average of 11 a game versus us? Or is what Josh Minot brings us on offense as that backup center role just more valuable?
Sorry, my internet is being so bad. I lost you after giving Amari Williams more run.
Well, is having a 7-footer more important than what Josh Minot brings us on offense is that kind of small ball switchy center? So there is
Yeah,
like a
so
trade off there.
yeah, and I think the conversation becomes like we do have a backup center. His name is Josh Minot, and I think like we started this conversation with has the Josh Minot at center minutes hit a wall. Um, I think we've talked about Joe Mazzulla loves that lineup and those small ball lineups because he wants to get more layups. He's focused kind of on increasing the pace on the offensive end, and I think it is working for that. Rebounding is obviously something that you're sacrificing when you're losing 7 inches from your center. Um, and I think part of it is if we had better options at the backup big, like Luca Garza early in the season had some moments, but like he's not really an
Yeah,
answer
it's not
in
Luka
terms of
Garza. I'm
that.
not even
It
bringing up.
Yeah. Xavier Tillman is like he can play one game out of every three and like whatever. It would be like it's kind of we have to make a move for a guy if we're looking for like a physical answer to those centers that you talked about, the big bruisers, or it's giving Amari Williams more run. And I'm not opposed to that. I'm very curious to see what we have in him. He's also, I believe, is he 22 years old?
Yeah, 21 or 22.
Yeah. So I think
I
getting
think
him some experience wouldn't be a bad thing. At the end of the day, it is just kind of, I think the issue that I think is happening with the Josh Minot at center lineups, because we've seen this before, there have been teams like going back to the Warriors during their dynasty of like, yeah, we're matching up with teams that have like at the time, the West was like, oh, we'll answer with Boogie and AD in New Orleans. Like, we're going to go extra big. And the answer is just like, well, small ball, you're sacrificing on defense and you're sacrificing on rebounding. The offense just has to make up for it. And over the course of the last, I want to say like 12 games or something like that, our offense is insane. Like, we
Yeah.
have three guys, maybe four, who can like comfortably create their own shot and score. And somehow we are, I think, 2 points per possession behind the Denver Nuggets, who have the best like offensive rating in NBA history this season. So like we're in the top 20 of NBA teams ever offensively, which is wild for a team that really doesn't have like that kind of offensive firepower. I think that's a testament to how effective these small ball lineups have been at creating those layups and those easy looks. So it really is just like a gamble of like, do we think that our offense, especially once Jason Tatum comes back, and I will like say, Jason Tatum's 6'10", like he can,
Yeah.
and he's strong. Like he can be a little bit of a backup center, and that's a lineup that we've seen in previous years of like Jason Tatum as the center, like Tatum plus bench with him being the tallest guy on the floor is something that has worked in the past. So again, I'm not opposed to making a move for a backup big who's got a little bit more size and a little bit more defensive like oomph. I am not opposed to seeing more Amari Williams, but I don't think there's a sense of urgency in Joe Mazzulla that like we need to figure something else out. I think if he's looking at the numbers and looking at our record since we found out like the Josh Minot backup center minutes and rotations and lineups, it's working. Like maybe not as effectively as it was when he first debuted it and it was like spectacular. I also think go ahead.
Let me push back on that because I think Joe Mazzulla always has a sense of urgency. I don't think there's ever a time when Joe Mazzulla's
Yeah.
like, it's whatever.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
chilling. You know,
yeah.
that just doesn't seem like his approach.
Yeah.
And when the Josh Minot lineup was struggling, he immediately went to, let's try out Hugo, which does seem like there's kind of an issue there that he's trying to solve. Um, the other thing we were going to bring up is that Jason Tatum put on his Instagram story recently a photo of him walking back out onto the court with a member of the training staff next to him. It said soon with a little fingers crossed emoji. He's a great defensive rebounder. And, you know, he's very capable of getting you those 12 rebound nights. Does he solve the problem, or does him potentially coming back kind of push this Celtics team to make a trade for another big man?
Yeah, I mean, it was exciting to see that post, and we've talked about this season. The Celtics organization has remained steadfast. We're not expecting him back this year. He has given every indication that he wants to come back this year, and his recovery, by all metrics, by all the videos that he's released and everything, has been progressing like astronomical for an injury of the severity that he had. I think, yeah, it really depends. We've talked about, I don't remember if this was during a podcast or if it was just a conversation you and I were having, of the Celtics to avoid the repeater tax, which is why we made all those big trades, would need to duck under it 2 years out of like the last five, which even if we get under the tax this year, we're not. I don't foresee us doing that, like punting in that way next year as well. So it is, I think, if Jason Tatum is coming back this year, I think the decision should be like, we're doing it this year. I don't know that this team, if he comes back and is immediately Jason Tatum again, I still don't know that like this team as currently constructed is a championship contender. But I think you start like the front office needs to match Joe Mazzulla in urgency at that point.
Yeah, I think you said two things in there. One, that the Celtics have been steadfast in Jason Tatum's not coming back. I don't think
They're
I've
not
heard
expecting
anyone.
him back. That's what the Celtics owner said.
Yeah, I've heard Brad say we're not rushing him back, but they also put him as injured for every game. Where if they had wanted to put him as out for season, they could have. So it does seem like there is some openness to allow him back. I'm sure there's going to be some sort of like medical test or bar for him coming back on the court.
Yeah, I'm
The
not
other
saying
thing
the
was that
Celtics don't want
we
him to come back this season. I think the quotes that I've seen are we're operating under the assumption that he won't be back this season. I think leaving that room of like if he is back, that's great, but they don't want to put any pressure on him to rush back.
Yeah, the other thing was that we moved Kristaps and Drew to reset the repeater. And I don't really think that's true. I think we did it to get under the second apron because if we had just rolled this team back and been over that second apron, then we really wouldn't be able to trade for any guys. And if, we go to the alternate universe where we kept those guys, they're injured now, then we'd be looking, how do we get a backup center, but also we can't trade for anybody? How do we get another ball handler? Because we wouldn't have Anthony Simons, but unable to, make a move. So I think it was more to, we're treating the second apron like a hard cap now, as it kind of is, and just staying below that. But I don't think there's a ton of pressure to reset that repeater tax. I listened to Bill Chisholm did an appearance on the White Noise podcast where it seemed like he was at least not stressing about the repeater at this point.
Okay. Well, that is optimistic because that was something that I know like many Celtics fans were upset at the directive of like Jason Tatum went down, we're cutting as much salary as humanly possible. I think in a lot of ways that did make sense. Like this team is younger, it is more versatile, it is well, more versatile arguably, but I don't think that was the wrong move looking back at it, but I think it is encouraging that if ownership is willing to like hey, if we're competitive, I'll pay what it takes, that is really promising. At that point, it becomes, hey, like who's available in terms of like backup centers? Again, we've talked recently about like Ivica Zubac rumors. We've talked about Nick Claxton in the past, and yeah, just kind of seeing. I mean, it feels like there are like answers out there. I think if Jason Tatum, if we think he's coming back this season, does that make you like you, Jeremy? Are you more inclined to make an Ivica Zubac trade?
100%. I think if you add Ivica Zubac and Jason Tatum to this team, their one weakness, which was defensive rebounding, suddenly we might be in top five conversations as a defensive rebounding team. And that would change our defense holistically. Where right now, we are top of the league in almost every defensive stat other than defensive rebounding and closing possessions. That we're really good at getting the other team to miss, but then we're just not collecting those misses. And for a team, if we have championship aspirations, that's not the kind of hole you can just leave open. And I think any team with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum on it should have championship aspirations. Anything else on the Raptors game?
Um, Scary game. Like led
You
for
think
the
every
vast
game is
majority of
scary?
just the ones where we have a possibility of losing. That's why I wasn't scared during the Lakers game because I knew it wasn't going to happen. But no, that was the first game in a while. I mean, again, I think it was against the Knicks and no, it was against the Wizards and the Lakers. We led wire to wire. There was never a doubt kind of in those games. This one had built up a sizable lead and then watched it dwindle, and eventually, with like 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter, it was like Toronto takes the lead for the first time all game. And that's when you go, oh, okay. Like, this is like, I want to be very clear. I have to work through this because this is Celtics trauma from previous seasons where we've had 24th quarter collapses in a year. But no, I thought, I mean, Derek White has just been like more and more aggressive as the season goes on. I thought this was during the Lakers game, but I thought Stan Van Gundy made an interesting point about Jordan Walsh being inserted into the starting lineup. I think SVG had like an astute take on this was he's able to guard the primary ball handler, and that does take a lot of like defensive responsibility off of Peyton Pritchard and Derek White, who are used to covering those guys. And I think they've been able to play a little bit more freely offensively without having to shoulder that defensive burden. Um, and so I thought that it's like heartening, I guess is the word, to see Derek White like going for the basket a little bit more, shooting the three a little bit more freely. Peyton Pritchard is just kind of doing Peyton Pritchard things. We touched on this earlier. When Tatum comes back, I do kind of think like moving Pritchard back to the bench would not be a bad option. Um, Especially again, depending on who the fuck knows what's going to happen with Anthony Simons. But um, I like the defense. I think there's only one ball, and it's like if you want to maximize Peyton Pritchard when he's on the floor, you should let him have the ball, and that's tougher to do when you have Derek White and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum next to him. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say Jordan Walsh. He's definitely not taken on Jason Tatum's role on this team. He's much more closely taken on the Drew Holiday role as just the go-to point of attack defender, which allows us to move, a Derek White or a Peyton Pritchard to a weaker, like a wing player, which, depending on matchup, is great for us because they can kind of chill on defense and then just attack when they get to the offensive end. I don't know how, like we saw against the Magic, that kind of um, be a weakness for us because it means that a team that has, multiple 6'10" big wings that can ball handle can attack our smaller guards. So if we have Jason Tatum come back, we can kind of treat Jordan Walsh more like a defensive two guard who just jumps on the other team's ball handler in those lineups. Derek White had a huge game against the Raptors. Going into this season, the thought was like, if Derek White's going to make an all star team, this would be the year. He's kind of the second option on this team. Is there still time for that, or was his shooting woes to start the season just take him out of the conversation?
I don't think it takes him out of the conversation. I think if anything, we've seen an all-star voting is also so weird. And it's changed in recent years with like the addition of fan voting and player voting and all of that stuff. If we're heading towards the All Star break and the Celtics are a top three seed in the East, which right now it looks like, again, we're rolling right now. And it's we have 2 games in the next 11 days or something like that. So we have time for everybody to rest up, like heal and like any lingering like little ticky tacky injuries we can kind of rest up from. Um, yeah, if we're heading towards that All Star break, third in the East or whatever, you kind of it's one of those situations where it's like that team deserves for a team that came into this season with expectations of like they might fully tank. It's one of those situations where it's like that team is too good to just have one All Star, a little bit, and I think also I don't know. I think the story of this season has been it's such a collaborative team with contributions from so many guys. Like, yes, Derek White has been the second best player on this team, regardless of his shooting woes. At the same time, it's like there are 5 games that we don't win without Josh Minot. There are 5 games that we don't win without Jordan Walsh. Like everybody has had such a hand in like this record and in this win streak right now and everything, that you can make an argument of like, oh yeah, Jaylen Brown's the only one who's like really, really stood out. But you're also like, you've got to look at Derek White's defensive impact, his playmaking. Like Pritchard has had kind of ups and downs with his playmaking in terms of generating assists and everything. Derek White has been like a consistent playmaker, a consistent defender, still like the best blocker for guards in the NBA.
His
And,
rim
and
protection is one of the reasons we can get away without a backup center because we can have rim protection coming from our guard spots, which is rare in the NBA.
yeah, And I don't think the shooting woes to start the season, they were bad. They weren't disastrous. Like, I think he's already working his way back from it. His percentage might not be like as pretty as you'd like it to be, but like we've hit the point in the season, I think, where like when Derek White shoots a three, I feel good about it, kind of regardless of what the shot is.
I always feel good about a Derek White three. I think Peyton Pritchard has kind of been the second option on offense. Maybe not a better overall player, but has definitely been scoring more. So I think unless Derek White just goes on an unconscious run, it's probably going to be unlikely for him to crack an all-star team this year. Um, New segment we wanted to try out. Uh, Matt fights the internet is what I've been calling it.
Yep.
Apparently, you have some beef with some people online.
Yeah, I absolutely do, and I thank you for the opportunity to let me fight the internet on this public forum. Hey, internet, I don't know what you're talking about. So this is in response to just scrolling social media and seeing on Twitter, X, whatever, on Facebook, there have been multiple posts where talking about the emergence of Jordan Walsh as a two-way like role player, a phenomenal two-way role player. How important that has been to this team, to this winning streak, to our record, all of that. And without fail, every single one of those posts, I'll look through the comments and it's filled with hundreds of people just being like, not a two-way player. Sorry, not a two-way player. Like, he's pretty good on defense. He's not a two-way player. I don't think those people know what they're talking about. I think that there has been this weird conflation, and it goes back to, I want to say this was like on an episode of Gil's Arena or something. The NBA has been getting more talented with time, and it hasn't necessarily been at like the number one spot on the team. Like superstar players are superstar players. They're not, maybe you can argue they're not exponentially better than superstar players 20 years ago, whatever. The third guy on a team is way better than the third guy on the team was 20 years ago or whatever. And with that, I think there's been, and in an era that like pretty recently, like until the whole cap situation changed, there were a bunch of like big threes. The NBA was like centered around big threes for a while. And so that gave this expectation, because so many of them were like three guys who can score really well, that like two-way player suddenly had to mean like can go out there and give you 20 on any given night. And that's simply not what two-way player is. So when people are like, Jordan Walsh isn't a two-way player because he can't go out there and be DeMar DeRozan or something, like he's not a scorer, I think that's a misunderstanding. I think a great example of like a two-way player is Aaron Gordon, who's like, he's the third guy next to Joker and Murray, and he's shown extreme like capability in that role. He's not going out there on any given night and looking for his own shots. He's playing within the flow of the offense, and it's worked extremely well for that team because it creates a lot of open, easy looks for him. He's efficient. He's able to score in a multitude of ways. And that is what like two-way capability is. It doesn't mean I can pick up a ball and score 20 points. Like, that's just a misunderstanding of what that is. That's a different type, like, that's a star player. That's like an offensive threat. That's whatever. But the idea that to be a two-way player, you need to be a scoring threat at all times, I think is fully missing the point. And Jordan Walsh does fit the criteria of like a two-way player in my mind, because we're coming from an era again of like, there were guys like Tony Allen, and there were guys who were like defense only players. Like the NBA used to have a whole lot more of guys who were just out there to play defense. Now everybody, because there's more kind of ball movement, there's more spacing, there's more shooting, everybody's a little bit better offensively, I would say. But you have to be able to like hold your own on the offensive end. You have to be able to contribute in a meaningful way, in my mind, to be a two-way player. And this is where the internet is like, contributing means you have to be a scorer, you have to like be a Peyton Pritchard or whatever. No, like Jordan Walsh just went through a historic run of efficiency. He sank 16 shots in a row at some point, like over the course of 3 games. Like, if you're shooting at like 75 to 90% efficiency over the course of 5 games and getting like 17, 14, like 21. Like he's not putting up insignificant scoring numbers, but he's doing it incredibly efficiently. He's doing it in a variety of ways. Like he's hitting his threes right now more efficiently than he probably will like over the course of a season, but he's hitting his threes. He's able to catch the ball and like drive and dunk with it. He's able to get offensive rebounds and put it back. It's like that's a guy who's able to score in a variety of ways on offense while also being arguably like this team has some great defenders, but he's like one of the better point of attack defenders in the league right now. God, my internet sucks right now. Yeah, but in my mind, this is where internet fight me. I don't really understand what you're talking about, but if you can score in a variety of ways, if you're incredibly efficient offensively, you're helping your team win on the offensive end every single game while being like one of the best defenders on the team, you're a two-way player, straight up. And I don't know how spoiled these people are that they're like, you're not a two-way player unless you're freaking all defense and like an elite scorer. Like that's simply not what that means. So that's me fighting the internet.
Yeah, good segment. I think the issue is that people have always conflated offense with dribbling. And we saw this a lot when people were criticizing Jaylen Brown and being like, well, he's not the offensive player Tatum is. He's not, especially early on in his career, it was like, well, he's a defender on the wing, but he should be, going more in the Marcus Smart role where he's just a defender. And Jaylen Brown, as we're seeing this season, can hit any shot on the floor. He just doesn't take 5 dribbles before he does it. And if he like took a 3 dribble crossover, kind of get in his bag before he took shots, he would be less efficient because he'd be taking more time with the ball. And he'd be taking it out of another guy's hands and letting the defense kind of collapse on him. But I think people would think of him more as an offensive player just because he would have the ball more on offense. And that's not really what an effective wing does in the NBA.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I think that's also even like you brought up Marcus Smart, who was seen as like he won a defensive player of the year. He's an elite defender, but that's another guy that's like I would be so confused if someone was like he's not a two-way player because he doesn't like in his best season with the Celtics he averaged 14 and a half points, but like he was carrying the offense. He was getting like 6 assists a game. He was yeah, like that's a two-way player. It really is like not just dribbling, but like scoring is not the only thing that makes it. So yeah, that I think that's just something that like really immediately caught my attention, and I was like, oh my god, I feel like I'm crazy.
Another new segment we wanted to try out today.
I'm excited for this one.
I'm calling this one How Many Beers? So I'm going to give a Celtics hot take. Something that your heart might agree with, but you'd be scared to say out loud. And I want you to tell me how many drinks till you would publicly back this take.
Okay.
Joe Mazzulla is the coach of the year.
1 non-alcoholic beer is all it would be.
Just stone cold sober.
Stone cold sober, I would support this take. I mean, obviously we have plenty of season left to go, but I think like the creativity with lineups, the willingness to just like it was a ballsy move to be like, nah, we don't need another center. We've got Josh Minot at 6'6". Like he's making big decisions. He's giving guys opportunity to play. I disagree with some of Joe Mazzulla's coaching decisions. I think he has like a very tight leash of like you make a mistake, you're out of the game, and I think that like I wish he would give guys a chance to like play through more mistakes and learn some stuff, but you can't argue with the results. Like he's taken a team that was widely expected to be in the lottery and right now is riding, I think, the best winning streak in the NBA outside of OKC. So yeah, I'll do this take off a sip of water straight up.
Yeah, currently the sportsbook have him as the 9th best odds for coach of the year. with 22 to 1. Yesterday morning, he had the 13th best odds at 33 to 1. Are you there?
I'm so sorry, my internet went out again. I heard the sportsbook have him at the ninth best odds.
So currently, sportsbooks have Joe Mazzulla as the ninth best odds to win Coach of the Year, 22 to 1. Yesterday, he was still at 13th best odds, 33 to 1.
I don't get it. I don't know. I don't know that there's 5 coaches in the league better than Joe Mazzulla. Like, I just don't. Is my internet working? What is going on? Sorry. Yeah, I have a hard time imagining like seeing 5 coaches in the league better than him right now. I think the teams that have better records than the Celtics, most of them have vastly superior talent that the coaches are working with. I don't think there's anyone being quite as creative with schemes and lineups as Joe Mazzulla is. Like, for me, if this kind of if we end the season as a top 3 seed, like whether or not Tatum comes back, you've gotta like it's gotta be Missoula, which also does scare me because Coach of the Year winners do tend to carry. It's a little bit of a curse. Like a lot of them get fired within a couple of years.
The next take I have. So recently, Celtics new owner Bill Chisholm did an appearance on the White Noise podcast. And they did a segment where he just took questions from fans on the Discord server.
Mm-hmm.
A fan asked him if there's any plans to do anything about the number of numbers that are retired.
Mm-hmm.
That Celtics players have hard times choosing numbers just because we have so many Hall of Famers on this team and so many numbers are retired. And is there a plan to do anything about that?
Mm-hmm.
He said they're not going to unretire any numbers. He thinks every number that's up there looks good, and the numbers 0, 7, and 9 would also look good up there. Being the jersey numbers for Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Derek White. So the take is, are at least 3 guys on this Celtics roster going to get their numbers retired as a Celtic?
So the game is how many beers. So this is how many beers would I need?
How many beers
to publicly like state like 3 guys on this team are going to get their number retired?
Yeah.
I want to say 5 beers. Just to like 5 beers would get me into a place of like emotional like nostalgia where I would just be like, yeah, fuck it. Like I just love Derek because Derek White's the one on the bubble there of like Jaylen and Jason. I think it's fair to like make that argument. Not only the finals win and everything, but like the number of conference finals that they brought us to.
And it was
which I know
on Derek White's podcast. So I think the 9 we have to take with a grain of salt.
Yeah. Yeah, I know Celtics fans and Celtics culture is like we only care about championships. I think the conference finals by themselves wouldn't seal it. I think winning the finals in addition to like the years of success prior to that and then falling just short, I think that kind of solidifies it. I mean, if Kevin Garnett's up there and spent like 5 years there. I think it's fair for both of those two. Derek White, I think, can get there depending on what we do in the next like couple seasons, assuming that he stays with us. I think my thing, it would take me 2 beers, maybe 3. I think it would take me 2 beers probably to make the argument that 42 needs to be up there.
Next take, Jaylen Brown is a top 5 MVP candidate.
3 beers. It would take me 3
That's
beers.
low.
Yeah, I think part of it is games played. Like Jaylen Brown just hasn't missed many games. I think the other guys, like, yeah, Luka's got to be up there. Like, I mean, SGA and Jokic, are 1 and 2, like guaranteed. And then I think the rest of it is like, how healthy is Wemby this season? Like, how healthy is Luka this season? If they play like 60 games and Jaylen Brown plays 75, like, yeah, he should be in that conversation. He's got the 3rd highest usage rate in the NBA. He's the most efficient mid-range scorer in the league. He's carrying a team that, like, everyone admits is drastically depleted of talent from last year to, like, the top of the East right now. or close to it.
Do you have him above Cade?
I have him above Cade. Yeah. I don't believe in the Pistons. Like this has been a thing that like I will die on this hill. Like, Cade Cunningham is playing great basketball. The Pistons are playing great basketball. I also do think like the Pistons do on a pure like on paper. I want to get your thought on this. How many beers would it take
Yeah.
for you to be like, no, the Celtics have more talent right now without Jason Tatum than the Pistons?
How are we defining talent?
However you need to. Like I'm kind of thinking at it like looking at the lineups and it's like
I
going
think
into this season versus where we are now, I think we view the talent on this team very differently, but going into this season, I don't think that like that would be a wild take.
I would pick this Celtics team to win a playoff series against the Pistons. A lot of that's just because of, experience and having guys who have been to championships. And the Pistons are still a very young team. But if it's count up guys who could make an all-star team, then I think the Pistons are so young. And, they have Cade, they have Asar Thompson, they have Jalen Duren. Jaden Ivey hasn't gotten healthy, but he has a lot of talent as a player that it would be hard to say we're just a more talented team, though I think we're a better team. So I think better team sober, more talented. Give me 6 beers.
6 beers. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and I'll say it right now, I do anticipate barring injuries which can throw a wrench into anything. I think we will finish this season with more wins than the Pistons.
Okay. I think that would make us the 1 seed.
Yeah.
Okay.
I said what I said.
Good. Hell yeah. Last one I had, Jason Tatum will be back by the trade deadline. Jason,
What is
how
the
about
trade deadline? February
15th?
15th.
Let's make it Jason Tatum should be back by the... No, will be back. And you're happy about it. How many beers till you're excited for Jason Tatum to come back by the trade deadline?
8 beers.
8 beers? That's a lot.
I don't want him to come back that soon. That scares me. I want him to the timeline that like I've been able to find of like it's 9 to 10 months until most NBA players comfortably come back. It's like 11 months until they're fully back to normal. Is kind of like the evidence that we have been working with based on Achilles injuries in the last like 10 to 20 years, I want to say. At least when I looked that up. Tatum has been unique in the sense that like he had the surgery 5 hours after the injury at the best Achilles hospital in the world. All of those factors, he's been showing like he's looked great from like month 4 after his surgery. He's looked like I'm making cutting drills, I'm pushing off of the leg, which is like the biggest thing that you have to get back. I do expect him back this year. I will be happy when he comes back. I think March is just like safer. Just give like that extra month for like the calf muscle to strengthen, for like just practice those cutting moves because he's going to be pushing off that leg a lot. And avoiding a re-injury of that leg is the most important thing. So I think to be happy about him coming back earlier than any of the science suggests that he like should or could, I would have to be pretty faded to support.
Okay, so when Jason Tatum comes back, we're drinking 8 beers.
Deal.
We're getting lit that night.
Listen, I'm a bar manager. I just brought on, I want to shout out Bay State Blood Orange Lager. In my opinion, the best beer in Massachusetts right now.
Hell yeah. I think that'll be it for us. Another episode of Jason Confused. Thank you all for listening. And see you guys next time.
All right. Take care, guys.